The great hall of the Galactic Council Station buzzed with excitement. 700 alien delegates filled the massive chamber, their different forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. At the center of it all, Admiral Vexthon of the Zelkari Empire stood before a huge holographic display. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored hive minds," Vexthon began, his 4 arms spread wide in greeting. His blue skin gleamed under the lights, and his eyes held the kind of look that said he had wonderful news to share. "Today we discuss a new discovery that will surely amuse you all." The hologram flickered to life, showing a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Murmurs filled the hall as delegates leaned forward in their seats, tentacles and floating pods. "This," Vexthon announced with a grin that showed far too many teeth, "is what the locals call Earth, home to a species that calls itself humans." Laughter erupted from several sections. The insectoid delegates from the hive mind of Kepler clicked their mandibles in what passed for chuckling among their kind. The crystalline beings of the ethereal dominion chimed like wind bells, their version of laughter. "Humans," repeated Chancellor Zixara of the Dominion, her crystal form shifting colors with amusement. "What a simple name for what I assume is a simple species." Vexthon nodded eagerly. "Oh, you have no idea how simple. Watch this." The hologram changed, showing scenes of human cities. Smoke rose from factories. Vehicles moved on wheels along paved roads. Aircraft with wings flew through the sky, using what looked like controlled explosions for power. "Incredible," boomed the synthetic voice of Core Prime, representative of the Nexus Collective. "They still burn chemicals for energy. How delightfully primitive." More laughter filled the hall. Vexthon waited for it to die down before continuing. "It gets better. They fight wars with projectile weapons, metal bullets fired by chemical explosives. And their most powerful weapons?" He paused for effect. "Nuclear fission. They split atoms like children breaking sticks." The laughter grew louder. Several delegates actually fell from their seats, overcome with mirth. A group of floating jellyfish-like beings from the aquatic consortium bobbed up and down, their version of rolling on the floor, laughing. "How old is their civilization?" asked Ambassador Thyrix of the reptilian hegemony, wiping tears from his scaled cheeks. "According to our scans, they only invented flight about 150 of their years ago. Their first space flight happened less than 100 years ago. They have not even left their home system properly." "Babies," clicked Queen Mother Zess of the hive mind. "Absolute babies playing with fire." Vexthon brought up more images. Humans in primitive spacesuits working on what looked like a tiny station, ships that moved by burning chemical fuel, communications that traveled by radio waves instead of quantum entanglement. "Their computing power," Core Prime observed, "appears to be based on silicon semiconductors." How charmingly ancient. "Indeed," Vexthon agreed. "Our scientists estimate their technology is at least 3,000 years behind galactic standard. They are barely more advanced than the species we use for manual labor on the rim worlds." The hall erupted in fresh waves of laughter and commentary. Delegates shared stories of other primitive species they had encountered over the centuries. None, it seemed, had been quite as backward as these humans. "What do they know of us?" asked a floating gas bag creature from the Atmospheric Federation. "Nothing at all," Vexthon replied with glee. "They scan their skies with radio telescopes, looking for simple signals. They have no idea that faster-than-light travel exists, no concept of dimensional folding or quantum communication. To them, the universe is empty except for themselves." "How sad," chimed Chancellor Zixara, though her tone suggested she found it more amusing than tragic. "They must feel so alone." "Which brings us to today's main agenda," Vexthon announced, his expression becoming serious but proud. The Galactic Council has a duty to protect developing species from themselves. These humans, in their ignorance, might one day discover technologies that could harm them or others. We must act before they hurt themselves. Several heads nodded around the hall. This was standard procedure when discovering a new primitive species. I propose we place Earth under protective quarantine, Vexathon continued. A simple blockade around their star system. Nothing gets in or out without our permission. We guide their development slowly and safely, as we have done for hundreds of other species. Seconded, called out Ambassador Therix. Thirded, added Queen Mother Zess. All in favor of protective quarantine for the human species? Vexthon called out. 700 voices, clicks, chimes, and electronic sounds filled the air in unanimous agreement. Excellent, Vexthon said, clearly pleased with himself. My fleet stands ready to enforce this quarantine. The Zelkari Empire will take responsibility for monitoring and protecting these humans until they are ready for proper galactic society. Give them a few thousand years, and they might even make decent servants. The hall filled with applause and approval. Delegates congratulated each other on their wisdom and kindness. They were protecting another innocent species from the dangers of premature technological development. None of them noticed the tiny probe that had been floating near the ceiling throughout the entire session. It was smaller than a grain of sand, invisible to their sensors, and had been recording every word. Far away in the darkness of space, Captain Sarah Chen sat in the command chair of her ship and watched the alien meeting on her main screen. Her dark eyes showed no emotion as she listened to 700 aliens laugh at her species and plan to imprison all of humanity. Captain, her communications officer said quietly, should I transmit our response? Chen was quiet for a long moment. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders. These were some of the best men and women humanity had ever produced, and they had been watching this meeting with growing anger. Not yet, Chen finally said. Let them come to us first. Let them think they hold all the cards. She touched a control on her chair arm. All hands. This is the captain. Red alert. Prepare for combat operations. It seems our new neighbors want to put us in a cage. The bridge lights dimmed to red as the ship prepared for war. Around the solar system, 49 other human ships received the same message and began their own preparations. The aliens were about to learn that their intelligence about humanity was not just wrong, it was dangerously, fatally wrong, and their laughter was about to turn to screams. 3 weeks after the Galactic Council meeting, Admiral Vexthon stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled with satisfaction. The eternal dominance was a sight to behold. 15 kilometers of Zelkari military engineering at its finest. Around his massive ship, 200 vessels spread out across the edge of Earth's solar system like a steel net. Report, Vexthon ordered his tactical officer. All ships in position, Admiral. Blockade formation complete. We have coverage on all possible exit routes from the inner system. Vexthon nodded, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. This was routine work, really. He had done blockade duty dozens of times over his long career. Primitive species always reacted the same way. First fear, then anger, then acceptance. In a few years, the humans would be grateful for galactic protection. Any sign of the natives? He asked. Nothing, sir. No ships, no defense platforms, no orbital installations beyond some basic communication satellites. It appears they are hiding on their planet's surface. Of course they are, Vexthon chuckled. They probably think we cannot see them if they stay very still. Like children hiding under blankets. The bridge crew laughed at their admiral's joke. These aliens always forgot how advanced galactic technology was compared to primitive worlds. Open a channel to the planet, Vexathan commanded. Let me speak to these humans personally. Channel open, Admiral. Vexathon straightened his uniform and put on his most official expression. Attention, inhabitants of the planet Earth. I am Admiral Vexathon of the Zelkari Imperial Navy, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council. Your species has been placed under protective quarantine for your own safety. Do not be afraid. We are here to help guide your development until you are ready to join galactic society. Please remain on your planet and do not attempt to leave your star system. This is for your own protection. He gestured for the channel to close, feeling pleased with his diplomatic message. Clear, simple words that even primitives could understand. How long until they respond, Admiral? Asked his communications officer. Oh, they probably need time to understand our language and figure out how to send a signal back. Give them a few hours, maybe a few days. These creatures move very slowly. Vexthon was reviewing patrol schedules when his sensor officer suddenly sat up straight. Admiral, contact lost with Patrol Group 7. What do you mean, lost contact? They were patrolling near the asteroid belt, sir. 3 cruisers and 2 destroyers. They just disappeared from sensors. Vexthon frowned. Equipment failure? Unknown, sir. They were reporting normal status, then nothing. No distress signals, no explosion signatures, no debris. Send another patrol to investigate. Yes, sir. Vexthon felt the first small touch of worry. Equipment failures happened, but entire patrol groups did not just vanish. He watched the tactical display as another group of ships moved toward the last known position of Patrol Group 7. 20 minutes later, those ships also vanished. Admiral, the sensor officer called out, his voice tight with stress. Patrol Group 12 is gone. Same as before. No signals, no explosions, just gone. The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of electronics. Vexthon stared at the tactical display where red dots marking his ships were slowly disappearing one by one. All units, report status, he ordered. Responses came flooding in from across his fleet. Ship after ship reported normal operations, normal sensor readings, nothing unusual. But the disappearances continued. Admiral, we have lost 47 vessels, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. No enemy contacts on sensors, no weapon signatures, nothing. Vexthon felt cold fear creep up his spine. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. Ships did not just disappear. There was always debris, always some trace of what happened. Recall all patrol units. Form defensive formation around the flagship. His remaining ships pulled back toward the eternal dominance, clustering together like frightened animals. The admiral watched his fleet shrink from 200 proud vessels to barely 150 in less than an hour. Sensor sweep. Maximum power. I want every cubic meter of space around us scanned. Scanning now, Admiral. The massive sensor arrays of his flagship reached out into the darkness, probing for any sign of whatever was hunting his fleet. Energy patterns, mass readings, thermal signatures, anything that might reveal their attacker. Results? Nothing, sir. Space appears completely empty except for our own ships. Another red dot vanished from the display. Group 15 is gone, the tactical officer whispered. Vexthon made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. All ships. Open fire on empty space. Full spread. All directions. If there is something out there hiding from our sensors, maybe we can hit it by luck. The darkness around his fleet lit up like a festival as over 100 warships opened fire at nothing. Plasma cannons sent streams of superheated gas into the void. Missile pods launched clouds of seeking warheads. Energy beams swept back and forth across empty space. For 5 minutes, his fleet threw enough firepower to destroy a small moon into the surrounding darkness. When the light show ended, his sensors showed exactly the same thing as before. Nothing. Admiral, his communications officer said quietly, we are receiving a transmission. From where? Unknown, sir. The signal appears to be coming from everywhere and nowhere. Put it through. A new voice filled the bridge. Female, speaking the common galactic trade language with an accent Vex Thon did not recognize. The voice was calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its confidence. Admiral Vex Thon, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Prometheus. You have entered our star system uninvited and made threats against our world. You have exactly 60 seconds to order your fleet to withdraw beyond the edge of this system, or we will consider your presence an act of war. Vex Thon's mandibles clicked in confusion and anger. Identify yourself. Show yourself. Stop hiding like cowards. 50 seconds, Admiral. This is impossible. You are primitives. You have no ships. 40 seconds. Vex Thon looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. His tactical display still showed no enemy contacts, no ships, no threats of any kind except his mysteriously disappearing vessels. 30 seconds. Pride and fear warred in the Admiral's chest. His species did not retreat from primitives. The Zelkari Empire had never been defeated by a lesser race, but his ships were disappearing, and he had no idea how or why. 20 seconds. All ships, he commanded, his voice barely steady. Maintain position, prepare for combat. Whatever these creatures are using against us, we will face it with honor. 10 seconds, the human voice said. Admiral, this is your final warning. We do not negotiate with primitives, Vex Thon shouted at the air. Show yourself and fight. The countdown reached 0, and that was when something impossible happened. A ship appeared directly in front of his flagship, so close that collision alarms screamed across the bridge. It had not been there a second before. Their sensors had shown empty space. But now a massive vessel hung in the darkness like a nightmare made real, its black hull seeming to absorb light itself. By the void, whispered his sensor officer. Admiral, that ship is nearly 20 kilometers long. Vex Thon stared at the impossible vessel through his bridge windows. It was bigger than his flagship. Its design was unlike anything in galactic databases, all sharp angles and weapon ports that glowed with contained energy. All ships, target that vessel and fire, he screamed. But even as his fleet turned their weapons on the human ship, Vex Thon knew in his bones that they had made a terrible, terrible mistake. The age of galactic superiority was about to end. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus and watched the alien fleet prepare to attack her ship. Around her, 50 of the finest officers humanity had ever trained worked at stations that hummed with power beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. All weapons charged and ready, Captain, reported her tactical officer, Commander Williams. Shields at full power, added Lieutenant Torres from the defense station. Their weapons cannot penetrate our barriers, ma'am. Chen nodded calmly. She had trained for this moment for 20 years, but she had never imagined it would happen quite like this. When Earth's hidden fleets were finally revealed, she had expected it to be humanity's choice, not because aliens forced their hand. Captain, her communications officer called out, the alien admiral is ordering his fleet to fire on us. Let them, Chen replied simply. Through the bridge windows, she watched the massive alien flagship turn its weapon banks toward her ship. Around them, over 150 alien vessels did the same. It was enough firepower to level a planet, all focused on the Prometheus. The alien fleet opened fire. Streams of plasma bright as stars lanced through space toward Chen's ship. Missiles with nuclear warheads streaked through the darkness. Energy beams that could cut through mountains struck the Prometheus from every direction. And absolutely nothing happened to the human vessel. The plasma strikes hit the ship's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed into energy reserves that humanity had spent centuries learning to build. The missiles exploded against barriers they could not even detect, their nuclear fire dispersing harmlessly into space. The energy beams struck armor that existed in 11 dimensions and were absorbed like raindrops hitting an ocean. "Shield status?" Chen asked quietly. "Absorbing enemy fire and converting to reserve power," Torres reported. "We are actually gaining energy from their attack, Captain." Chen almost smiled. The aliens were literally making her ship stronger by shooting at it. "Captain Chen," came Admiral Vexthon's voice over the communication channel, "how is this possible? Our weapons cannot hurt you." "Admiral," Chen replied, her voice calm and professional, "your weapons were designed to fight enemies who think like you do. Humanity thinks differently." She touched a control on her command chair. Around the solar system, 49 other human ships received her signal and began to appear from nothing. One by one, they dropped their cloaking fields and became visible to alien sensors. The effect on the alien fleet was immediate. Panic spread across their communication channels as they realized they had been surrounded by an entire fleet of invisible ships. Ships that were all larger and more advanced than anything they had ever encountered. "Impossible," Vexthon whispered, his voice carried across all frequencies. "This cannot be real." "I assure you, Admiral, we are quite real," Chen replied. "As are our weapons. Would you like a demonstration?" She did not wait for an answer. Chen had read the intelligence reports on Admiral Vexthon. He was proud, arrogant, and completely convinced of his own superiority. Words would never convince him. Only action would do. "Weapons," Chen ordered. "Single precision strike. Target the alien flagship's weapons and engines. Disable only. No casualties." "Yes, Captain. Targeting now." A single beam of energy lanced out from the Prometheus. It was not like the crude plasma bolts or energy beams the aliens used. This was something new. Coherent energy that existed partially outside normal space, guided by artificial intelligence that could calculate trajectories across multiple dimensions. The beam struck Admiral Vexthon's flagship with surgical precision. It did not destroy the massive ship or punch through its hull. Instead, it did something far more terrifying. It systematically shut down every weapon system, every engine, every piece of military equipment on the vessel, while leaving life support completely untouched. In 30 seconds, the pride of the Zelkari Imperial Navy was reduced to a helpless hulk floating in space. "Admiral Vexthon," Chen said calmly, "your flagship is now completely disabled. Your crew is unharmed, your life support is functioning, but you cannot move or fight. This is what precision warfare looks like." "This is impossible." Vexthon's voice cracked across the channel. "No weapon can be this precise. No technology can disable specific systems without affecting others." "Human technology can," Chen replied. "We have had centuries to perfect it while you thought we were throwing rocks at each other." She opened a channel to her sister ships. "All vessels, demonstrate human precision. Disable the alien fleet. No casualties, no permanent damage. Show them what controlled force looks like." What happened next would be remembered as the most one-sided battle in galactic history, except it was not really a battle at all. It was a lesson. The human ships moved through the alien formation like wolves among sheep, their weapons reaching out with impossible accuracy. Ship after ship found itself suddenly powerless, its weapons dead, its engines cold, but its crew completely safe. The aliens tried to fight back, but their return fire was useless. Human ships danced between plasma streams like leaves in the wind, their movements too fast and precise for alien targeting systems to track. When alien weapons did manage to hit, they simply made the human vessels stronger. In less than 10 minutes, an entire alien fleet of over 150 ships had been rendered completely helpless without a single casualty on either side. "Admiral," Chen said when the demonstration was complete, "I trust this has been educational." Through the communication channel, she could hear Vexthon breathing heavily, probably in shock. His entire worldview had just been destroyed along with his fleet's combat capability. What are you? He finally managed to ask. We are humans, Chen replied simply. The same species you laughed about 3 weeks ago. The primitives you came here to protect from themselves. She activated another control, and holographic images appeared around the alien ships. Images of human cities that stretched across continents. Space stations the size of moons hidden in asteroid fields. Ships traveling between stars while alien civilizations were still learning to use fire. For the past 300 years, Admiral, humanity has been traveling among the stars. We have visited every world in this galaxy. We have walked through your cities, traded with your merchants, studied in your universities. We have watched you grow and develop, and we have quietly helped when you needed it. The images continued to flow. Human diplomats at peace negotiations between alien races, human scientists sharing medical breakthroughs through shell companies, human engineers providing technological solutions to species that thought they had developed them independently. The hyperspace route your species uses to reach the outer rim, human engineers mapped it and left clues for your explorers to find. The quantum crystal technology that powers your most advanced computers, human chemists developed it and introduced it through a trading company you thought was run by the ethereal Dominion. Vexthon's voice was barely a whisper. Why? Why hide from us? Why not reveal yourselves? Chen was quiet for a moment before answering. Because you were not ready. Your species, all of your species, still think in terms of conquest and dominance. You measure advancement by the size of your weapons and the number of worlds you control. Humanity learned long ago that true power comes from knowledge and patience. She gestured to her tactical display, where the disabled alien fleet hung helpless in space. Admiral, you brought 200 ships to imprison a species of 8 billion people on a single world. You thought this would be easy because we appeared primitive to you. But you never asked the right question. What question? Vexthon asked. If humans are so primitive, why have we never asked for help? Why have we never called out to the stars for assistance or guidance? Every other species in the galaxy sends out signals when they discover space travel, looking for other intelligent life, but not humans. We have been silent since the day we reached the stars. Did you never wonder why? The communication channel was quiet, except for the sound of alien breathing. We were silent because we were already out there, Chen continued. We were already among you, already learning from you, already surpassing you. The galaxy thinks humanity is isolated on a single world, but the truth is that humanity has been everywhere for centuries. Chen stood up from her command chair and walked to the main view screen, where Admiral Vexthon's disabled flagship hung in the darkness. Admiral, you will take a message back to your Galactic Council. Tell them that humanity appreciates their concern for our welfare, but we respectfully decline their protection. Tell them that Earth formally requests diplomatic recognition as a sovereign species. She paused, looking directly at the alien ship through the screen. And Admiral, tell them that this demonstration was us being polite. If they choose to respond with force rather than diplomacy, they will discover that human weapons have other settings besides disable. Around the solar system, the human fleet began to fade from sensors as their cloaking systems reactivated. Within minutes, only the Prometheus remained visible, a dark reminder of humanity's true power. Your ship's systems will reactivate in 24 hours, Chen said. That should give you enough time to think about what happened here today. Use that time wisely, Admiral. The galaxy is about to change, and you get to choose whether that change comes through peace or war. The Prometheus faded from sensors, leaving Admiral Vexthon and his fleet alone with their thoughts and their shame. The age of galactic arrogance was over. The age of human ascendancy had begun. 3 days after Admiral Vexthon's humiliating defeat, emergency sessions were being called in every major capital across the galaxy. The report of humanity's technological superiority had sent shockwaves through 7 great empires and dozens of smaller civilizations. In the crystal spires of the ethereal dominion, Chancellor Zixara stood before her council with her normally bright form dimmed to an ugly brown color that showed deep distress. Around her, dozens of crystalline beings chimed with worry and confusion. "The impossible has happened," she announced to her gathered advisors. "Our intelligence networks have completely failed us. For centuries, we have believed ourselves to be among the most advanced species in the galaxy. Now we discover that a primitive species has been operating invisible fleets that make our dreadnoughts look like children's toys." Senior advisor Plexuri shifted his crystal form to a worried blue shade. "Chancellor, our scientists are reviewing Admiral Vexthon's sensor logs. The energy signatures from the human ships show technology that should not exist. They appear to be using controlled exotic matter, dimensional folding, and quantum manipulation on a scale that our most advanced theories say is impossible." "Theories," Zixara said bitterly. "Apparently human science has moved beyond theory into practical application. While we were congratulating ourselves on our crystal matrix computers, they were building machines that exist in 11 dimensions." Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place in the underwater cities of the Aquatic Consortium, the hive chambers of the Insectoid Collective, and the synthetic cores of the Nexus machines. But it was in the high-security intelligence facility of the reptilian hegemony that the most disturbing discoveries were being made. Agent Salax slithered into the briefing chamber where Director Thyssen waited with obvious impatience. The old reptilian's scales were dark with stress, and his forked tongue flicked nervously as he read reports on multiple screens. "Report!" Thyssen hissed. "Director, the investigation into human infiltration has produced unexpected results." Salax activated a holographic display that showed trade records going back 50 years. "We have identified 17 different trading companies that we now believe were human front operations." 17? That's just the beginning, sir. Remember the quantum processing crystals that we've been importing from the Dominion for our most secure computer systems? The ones we use for military encryption and intelligence analysis? Thyssen's eyes widened. "Do not tell me." "The crystals are artificial, sir. They were not mined from natural deposits as the Dominion claimed. They were manufactured using technology that the Dominion does not possess. The molecular structure shows fabrication techniques that our best scientists cannot explain." The director's claws extended involuntarily, scoring marks in his desk. "Continue." "The trading company that originally discovered the crystal deposits was called Terra Mining Consortium. At the time, we assumed Terra was a reference to one of the Dominion's homeworlds. But Terra is also the human name for their planet Earth." More holographic displays showed shipping records, communication logs, and financial transactions spanning decades. As the evidence piled up, a horrifying picture emerged. "Director, humans have not just been watching us. They have been actively involved in galactic commerce, technology transfer, and even politics. The hyperspace navigation charts that allowed us to expand into the Outer Rim territories? They were provided by a company that we now know was human-operated." Thyssen was silent for a long moment, his reptilian brain processing the implications. "How long?" "Unknown, sir. But we have evidence of possible human activity going back at least 2 centuries. They may have been operating among us since before some of our species achieved interstellar travel." Similar discoveries were being made across the galaxy as intelligence agencies frantically reviewed their records. The hive mind of Kepler discovered that their recent successful territorial expansion had only been possible because of randomly discovered resources that now appeared to have been deliberately placed for them to find. The synthetic beings of the Nexus Collective made perhaps the most disturbing discovery of all. Core Prime's personal diagnostic revealed that several of their most important software developments contained code that did not match any known programming language in their databases. Analysis suggests, reported Core Prime's chief programmer unit, that approximately 30% of our core operating systems contain algorithms of unknown origin. The coding style is consistent, but does not match any civilization in our databases. Could these algorithms be human in origin? Asked Core Prime. Probability assessment indicates 97% likelihood. The logical structure follows patterns that match human mathematical thinking, but at a complexity level far beyond what we believed humans capable of achieving. Core Prime processed this information with growing alarm. If humans had been subtly influencing Nexus development for decades, then they had essentially guided the evolution of an entire artificial intelligence civilization. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Captain Chen received regular reports from Earth Command about the galaxy's response to their revelation. The reaction was exactly what human psychologists had predicted: panic, denial, and a desperate search for any evidence that would let the galactic powers maintain their sense of superiority. "Captain," her intelligence officer reported, "we're monitoring communication traffic across all major empires. Intelligence services are conducting emergency reviews of their databases. Trade departments are investigating historical transactions. Military commands are analyzing their equipment for possible human technology." "And what are they finding?" Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. "Everything we wanted them to find, ma'am. Evidence of human involvement in galactic affairs going back centuries. Trade records, technology transfers, resource discoveries, even diplomatic interventions." Chen nodded. This had always been part of the plan. If humanity was ever forced to reveal itself, the galaxy needed to understand that this was not a recent development. Humans had been the hidden hand guiding galactic civilization for longer than most species had recorded history. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving priority transmissions from 17 different governments. They're all requesting immediate diplomatic contact with Earth." Responses: fear, mostly. Several are offering tribute or alliance. A few are trying to claim they always suspected humans were more advanced and want to take credit for friendly relations. Chen almost smiled. Typical political behavior when faced with a superior force. Immediate attempts to join the winning side. Any hostile responses? 3 minor empires are mobilizing their fleets, ma'am. They appear to believe that if they can defeat us in battle, they can claim our technology for themselves. "Fools," Chen said quietly. "Prepare response protocols for aggressive action. If they want to test human military capability, we should be happy to educate them." But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. Deep in the galactic core, an ancient artificial intelligence that had been dormant for millennia suddenly came online. The Eternal Archive had been built by a long-vanished race and contained the collected knowledge of 1,000 civilizations. Its message was simple but terrifying. Warning to all current galactic civilizations. Species designation human shows genetic markers consistent with predecessor race designation Omega. Recommend immediate peaceful contact. Previous attempts at hostile action against predecessor races resulted in complete civilization termination. Archive contains records of 17 separate galactic extinctions caused by underestimating human-type species. The message spread through galactic networks within hours. Suddenly, humanity's technological demonstration took on an entirely different meaning. This was not a young species that had somehow advanced beyond galactic norms. This was potentially a member of the legendary predecessor races, the mysterious civilizations that had built the galactic hyperspace network, created artificial intelligences, and then vanished, leaving only ruins and warnings behind. As this revelation spread, the galaxy's response shifted from panic to terror. If humans were connected to the predecessors, then they were not just technologically advanced. They were part of a cosmic hierarchy that made current galactic powers look like insects. Admiral Vex Thon received this news while his disabled fleet waited for their systems to reactivate. He sat in his command chair, staring at intelligence reports that painted a picture of human involvement in galactic affairs going back farther than his species had recorded history. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "Earth Command is sending us a message." "Play it." Captain Chen's calm voice filled the bridge. "Admiral Vex Thon, by now your intelligence services have discovered that humanity has been active in galactic affairs for considerably longer than you initially believed. You are probably wondering why we chose to remain hidden, and why we are revealing ourselves now. The holographic display showed images of galactic wars, species extinctions, and planets burned to ash. The galaxy has a pattern, Admiral. Young species discover interstellar travel, become aggressive, expand rapidly, and eventually destroy themselves or others. We have watched this cycle repeat dozens of times over the centuries. Sometimes we were able to intervene quietly, preventing wars or guiding technological development in safer directions. Sometimes we were too late. The images shifted to show peaceful trade negotiations, successful diplomatic resolutions, and thriving civilizations. But the galaxy is changing. Your species and others are reaching a level of technological development where quiet intervention is no longer sufficient. You are beginning to ask the right questions, to develop the kinds of weapons that could threaten not just yourselves, but other species across the galaxy. Chen's image appeared on the screen, her expression serious but not hostile. "Admiral, humanity is revealing itself now because it is time for the galaxy to mature beyond the cycle of expansion and destruction. We are offering to share our knowledge, our technology, and our perspective with any civilization that chooses cooperation over conquest." She paused, looking directly at the camera. "But make no mistake, this is not a request. The age of galactic childhood is over. Humanity will no longer allow aggressive species to threaten the peace and stability we have worked centuries to build. You can choose to join us as equals, or you can choose to be governed by us as children." The message ended, leaving Admiral Vexathon alone with the most important decision in galactic history. The universe had just been offered a choice: grow up or be disciplined by their elders. Most would choose wisely. Some would not. For those who chose poorly, humanity was prepared with more than just disable settings on their weapons. 6 months after the incident at Earth, the galaxy was a very different place. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council Station had been rebuilt and expanded to accommodate new realities. Where once 7 major empires had dominated galactic politics, now there were 8 seats at the high table. The 8th seat belonged to humanity. Captain Sarah Chen, now promoted to ambassador, sat in that seat and watched as representatives from across the galaxy filed into the chamber. The mood was very different from the last time she had observed a council session. Gone was the casual arrogance and dismissive laughter. In its place was careful respect and barely hidden fear. "The 2848th session of the Galactic Council will come to order," announced Chancellor Zixara, her crystal form still showing stress colors after all these months. "Today we address the formal treaty proposals submitted by the United Terran Federation." Chen stood gracefully, her simple black uniform contrasting sharply with the elaborate costumes and natural forms around her. In the months since humanity's revelation, she had become the most watched and analyzed person in galactic history. Every gesture was studied, every word recorded and debated by intelligence agencies across known space. "Honored delegates," Chen began, her voice carrying easily through the vast hall. 6 months ago, you learned that humanity has been present in galactic affairs for far longer than any of you suspected. Today, I want to discuss what that means for our shared future." Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. Everyone knew that this moment would define the next era of galactic civilization. Many of you have asked why humanity chose to remain hidden for so long. The answer is simple. You were not ready for us. Your civilizations were still developing, still making the mistakes that young species always make. We chose to guide quietly rather than rule openly because we believed you could mature beyond those mistakes. Ambassador Thyrix of the reptilian hegemony leaned forward in his seat. Ambassador Chen, our intelligence services have discovered evidence of human intervention in over 200 significant galactic events. Wars prevented, technologies introduced, resources discovered. How long has this guidance been taking place? Longer than your species has had written language, Ambassador, Chen replied calmly. Humanity reached the stars when most of your civilizations were still developing agriculture. We have been watching, learning, and occasionally helping ever since. Core Prime of the Nexus Collective spoke next, its synthetic voice carrying harmonic overtones that suggested deep thought. Ambassador, analysis of our core programming reveals extensive influence from human mathematical concepts. Did your species deliberately guide our development? We provided certain algorithmic frameworks when we noticed your kind was struggling with recursive consciousness loops, Chen admitted. Without that intervention, your species would have destroyed itself in an AI cascade failure approximately 200 years ago. Shocked silence filled the hall. The synthetic beings of the Nexus had always prided themselves on their independent evolution, from primitive machines to galactic civilization. Learning that their survival had depended on human intervention was deeply disturbing to their sense of identity. What other civilizations owe their survival to human intervention? Asked Queen Mother Zess of the hive mind of Kepler. Chen activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy as it existed 6 months ago. The question is not which civilizations we helped, Your Majesty. The question is which civilizations we did not help. The display changed, showing alternative timeline projections. Destroyed worlds, extinct species, dead systems where thriving civilizations should have existed. Without human intervention, the aquatic consortium would have poisoned their oceans with industrial waste 3 centuries ago. The Zelkari Empire would have collapsed into civil war when their star charts failed to account for gravitational anomalies in the outer rim. The ethereal dominion would have shattered their crystal matrix networks in a failed attempt at consciousness uploading. Each revelation hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. Their greatest achievements, their proudest moments, their very survival, all of it had been possible only because an unknown species had been quietly helping them succeed. But why reveal yourselves now? Asked Admiral Vex Thon, who had been promoted to diplomatic envoy after his encounter with human forces. If you have guided us for so long, why end the secrecy? Chen's expression grew serious. Because you are reaching the point where our quiet guidance is no longer sufficient. Your species are developing technologies that could threaten not just yourselves, but other civilizations across the galaxy. Quantum weapons, dimensional destabilizers, consciousness viruses that could destroy entire digital civilizations. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed projections of potential future conflicts. In the next 50 years, without active intervention, there is an 87% probability of a galactic war that would destroy at least 3 major civilizations and render 12 star systems uninhabitable. The cycle of expansion, conflict, and destruction that has repeated throughout galactic history is about to reach its most dangerous phase. The hall was completely silent now. Every delegate understood that they were hearing about their own potential extinction. Humanity is offering an alternative, Chen continued. We will share our technology, our knowledge, our experience in managing advanced civilizations. We will help you develop in ways that ensure everyone's survival and prosperity. But this cooperation comes with conditions. What conditions? Asked Chancellor Zixara, her crystal form flickering with nervous energy. First, aggressive expansion ends now. No more territorial wars, no more conquest of primitive species, no more forced colonization. Civilizations that choose violence over diplomacy will find themselves facing human intervention. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Military expansion had been the primary method of growth for most galactic civilizations. Second, primitive species will be protected. No more protective quarantines that are actually imprisonment. No more exploitation of underdeveloped worlds. Younger civilizations will be allowed to develop at their own pace with guidance, not control. Third, technology sharing becomes mandatory between civilizations. The hoarding of scientific advances that could benefit everyone will no longer be tolerated. Knowledge belongs to all sentient life. And if we refuse these conditions? Asked a delegate from one of the minor empires. Chen's smile was polite but contained no warmth. Then you will discover why humanity spent 3 centuries developing weapons you cannot imagine instead of revealing ourselves sooner. To emphasize her point, the holographic display showed images from recent weeks. 3 minor civilizations had attempted to test human military strength after the initial demonstration. Their fleets had been found floating dead in space, crews unharmed but ships completely disabled. One particularly aggressive species had seen their entire homeworld's technology shut down for a week. No power, no computers, no communication, but no casualties. Humanity does not wish to rule through fear, Chen said. But we will not allow the galaxy to destroy itself through stupidity and aggression. The choice is yours, cooperation and prosperity, or supervision and control. Admiral Vexthon stood slowly. Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the Zelkari Empire, I formally accept humanity's terms. We request full alliance and technology-sharing agreements. The ethereal dominion also accepts, said Chancellor Zixara quickly. One by one, every major civilization in the hall agreed to humanity's terms. They had seen enough evidence of human power to know that resistance was futile, and enough evidence of human benevolence to hope that cooperation would be genuinely beneficial. When the formal agreements were signed, Chen stood again to address the council. Today marks the beginning of the Galactic Federation, an alliance of equal civilizations working together for the benefit of all sentient life. Humanity will serve as senior partners in this federation, not as rulers, but as guides and protectors. She looked around the hall at faces, crystal forms, digital projections, and floating gas bags that all showed the same expression, hope mixed with apprehension. For too long, this galaxy has been trapped in cycles of conflict and destruction. Today, that cycle ends. Together, we will build a civilization that spans the stars, protects the weak, and ensures that no species ever again faces extinction because of war or ignorance. Chen sat down as applause filled the hall. Not the polite political applause of diplomatic meetings, but genuine enthusiasm from beings who had just been offered a chance to survive and thrive under the protection of their elder siblings among the stars. In the weeks that followed, human technology began flowing to allied civilizations, medical advances that extended lifespans by centuries, energy systems that could power entire worlds without environmental damage, transportation networks that could move goods and people across the galaxy in days rather than months. But perhaps most importantly, human wisdom began guiding galactic policy. Wars were prevented before they could start. Trade disputes were resolved through arbitration rather than force. Primitive civilizations were contacted with respect and patience rather than arrogance and exploitation. The galaxy entered a new golden age under human guidance. Not because humanity ruled with an iron fist, but because they had spent centuries learning how to build a civilization that could last for millennia without destroying itself. Admiral Vexthon, now serving as the Zelkari representative to the new Galactic Federation, often thought back to that day when he had arrived at Earth expecting to find primitives cowering on a single world. Instead, he had discovered that humanity had been the guardians of galactic civilization all along, watching from the shadows and keeping everyone safe. The galaxy had finally grown up enough to meet its parents, and humanity, patient and wise after centuries of careful guidance, was ready to teach their galactic children how to build a future worthy of the stars.